New York City, 1974.
Yeah.
A misty August morning.
Mm-hmm.
Commuters are, rushing to work, coffee in hand.
Right.
They glance up.
Yeah.
And they see a section walking on air between the Twin Towers.
Between the Twin Towers?
It's not a hallucination. It's Philippe Petit.
Yeah.
And this is the deep dive into the man, the myth, the legend.
A legend.
Behind one of history's most audacious artistic feats.
What's captivating about this story is that it digs into the very heart of ambition, risk, and the artistic impulse to challenge what's possible.
Right.
We have firsthand accounts, historical analyses, even some of Petit's own writings to guide us.
So we're not just talking about a tightrope walk, right? This is about delving into the mind of someone who dreamed the impossible.
Yes.
And then meticulously set out to make it reality.
Yes.
What kind of personality does that take?
There's a psychological depth here.
Yeah.
That's as fascinating as the physical act itself.
Right.
What drives someone to such extremes?
Yeah.
How do they manage the fear, the doubt, the sheer logistical hurdles?
Okay, let's rewind to Petit's beginnings.
Okay.
It's clear from the sources that this wasn't some, sudden impulse.
Right.
The seeds were sown way back in his childhood.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
From a young age, Petit was drawn to heights.
To height.
To magic, to pushing boundaries. He was expelled from multiple schools. Always testing limits.
Wow.
Always seeking a challenge.
So 5 expulsion?
Yeah, 5 expulsion. It makes you wonder, is this rebellious spirit something you're born with, or is it nurtured by experience?
That's some serious dedication to nonconformity.
Yeah.
But it seems this energy eventually found a more focused outlet.
Right.
Street performing.
He started as a juggler and a magician.
Okay.
But tightrope walking quickly became his passion. And not just any tightrope walking.
Yeah.
He was constantly upping the ante.
Upping the ante. Okay. Seeking out ever more precarious locations.
Yeah.
Always with that touch of theatricality.
So it's not just the physical skill, it's the artistic vision driving him, right?
Precisely.
He's not just walking on a wire.
Yeah.
He's creating an experience.
Yes.
He's playing with the audience's perceptions.
And this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
In 1968, Petit sees a picture of the under construction Twin Towers.
The Twin Towers.
And boom, the vision hits him. Those towers, symbols of modern ambition, become his canvas.
It's almost like those towers were daring him.
Right.
Beckoning him to do the unthinkable.
Yeah.
But let's be real.
Yeah.
Walking between 2 of the world's tallest buildings, it's a tad more complex than a street performance.
God, Tad, yes.
This is where Petit's meticulous planning comes in. The sources reveal a mind that's as much engineer as artist.
Yeah.
Before even attempting the towers.
Yes.
He had these incredible, practice runs.
You're talking about his unauthorized high-wire walks.
Exactly.
At Notre Dame Cathedral and the Sydney Harbor Bridge.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about audacity.
Right.
These are iconic landmarks, and he just did it.
Think about the psychological aspect of that.
Yeah.
Each walk is a step up in scale, in risk. Almost like he's conditioning himself for the ultimate challenge.
For the big one?
Yeah, he's gathering data.
Okay.
Honing his technique. Mastering the mental game.
Mastering the mental game, yeah. And let's not forget the technical side.
Oh, absolutely.
You can't just, waltz onto a wire between skyscrapers without some serious know-how.
The sources detail his use of a specially designed steel cable.
Okay.
About 1 inch thick.
Wow.
And a custom-made balancing pole.
A custom-made balancing pole.
Okay,
Nice.
it's a combination of strength, flexibility, and responsiveness.
Yeah.
Designed to absorb the wire's movements.
So it's not just walking, it's almost like dancing with the wire, right?
Exactly.
Anticipating its shifts and adjusting your body accordingly. And this requires incredible core strength, balance, and focus.
Yeah.
Years of dedicated training went into developing this skill.
Right.
But even with all the physical preparation, the Twin Towers was a whole different beast.
Yeah, we're talking years of planning.
Right.
Hundreds of clandestine visits to the towers.
Yes.
Meticulously studying their structure, their security, even factoring in wind and temperature fluctuations.
All of that, yeah.
This wasn't just a stunt.
No.
It was a full-blown covert operation.
He even recruited a small, dedicated team to help him.
Okay.
They smuggled equipment. created disguises, all while evading detection.
Sneaking around?
They even used a bow and arrow to get the initial line across between the towers.
A bow and arrow.
A bow and arrow.
Can you imagine?
Can you imagine the tension, the fear of discovery?
Oh, yeah.
The sheer audacity of it all.
It's like something out of a heist movie.
Right. But with much higher stakes.
Much higher.
And this brings us to the night of the walk.
Yes.
August 6th, 1974.
1974.
A date etched in New York City legend.
It is.
Petit and his team
Yes.
covertly entered the towers, hiding for hours until after midnight.
After midnight.
The sources describe a palpable sense of anticipation,
Yeah.
nervous energy crackling in the air. They were on the verge of either making history
Right.
or facing disaster.
And there were close calls, right?
There were.
I read about a tense encounter with a security guard
Uh-oh.
while they were getting the wire across.
While they were getting the wire across. Okay.
Yes, but Petit managed to evade him with a combination of quick thinking and sheer luck.
Wow. So as the sun began to rise,
Yeah.
that pivotal moment arrived.
It did.
Petit stepped onto the wire,
Onto the wire.
high above the awakening city.
High above the city.
And that's where we'll pick up in part 2.
We will.
Get the walk itself.
The walk itself.
The reactions, the risks,
Right.
and ultimately the consequences
The consequences
of this daring act.
of this daring act.
But for now, what stands out to you about Petit's journey to this point?
It's the interplay of ambition and meticulous preparation.
Ambition and meticulous preparation.
This wasn't just a daredevil stunt.
Right.
It was a carefully orchestrated performance, years in the making.
Yeah.
It makes you question how much of what we call talent is actually just relentless dedication and a willingness to push beyond perceived limits.
It's definitely giving me a new perspective on the phrase reach for the stars.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll witness the culmination of Petit's incredible dream.
His incredible dream. Welcome back to the deep dive.
We left off with Philippe Petit taking that first heart-stopping step onto the wire, suspended between the twin towers.
High above the city.
Yeah.
A lone figure on a steel thread.
It's almost impossible to grasp the sensory experience, you know?
Right.
The feeling of vulnerability.
Vulnerability.
The wind.
Yeah.
The sway of the wire.
And yet, the sources describe Petit as remarkably calm.
Calm.
Focused.
Wow.
Almost serene.
Really?
He later described it
Okay.
as a feeling of liberation, of becoming one with the sky,
with the sky,
of walking on air.
Oh.
It's this paradox of immense risk and artistic grace
Artistic grace.
that makes his story so compelling.
So as the sun rose higher, casting long shadows across the city, what was unfolding down below?
Down below.
How did New Yorkers react to this unexpected performance?
Imagine looking up and seeing this.
Yeah.
At first, there's disbelief, right?
Disbelief, yeah.
Then wonder.
Wonder.
Yeah, and a growing sense of awe as people realize what they're witnessing.
They're witnessing it.
Traffic slowed to a crawl.
Really?
Crowds began to gather, and words spread like wildfire through the city.
It's almost as if Petit gifted the city a collective moment of pause, a shared experience that transcended the daily grind.
The daily grind.
He took something ordinary,
Yeah.
the commute,
The commute.
the cityscape,
Right.
and transformed it into something extraordinary.
This wasn't just a stunt.
No,
It was a spectacle.
a spectacle.
A performance that transcended language and culture.
Yeah.
And Petit, the artist, was acutely aware of his audience.
He knew what he was doing.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
He didn't simply walk across. He interacted with the wire.
What's the wire?
With the space.
The space.
With the people watching.
He knelt. He lay down.
He did.
He even seemed to salute the crowd.
He did, yeah.
All while maintaining perfect balance.
Perfect balance.
There's a joy, a playfulness that contrasts sharply with the inherent danger.
And that, I think, is part of the genius of his act.
His act, yeah.
He's acknowledging the risk, the audacity of what he's doing.
Right.
But he's also finding the beauty, the humor, the poetry in it.
It's like he's saying, yes, this is dangerous, this is crazy, but it's also beautiful.
It is.
It's magical.
It is.
And I'm sharing this experience with all of you.
Exactly.
And the people below responded in kind.
They did.
There are accounts of people cheering.
Cheering, gasping.
Gasping, even weeping.
Weeping.
At the sheer beauty and daring of what they were seeing.
Right.
But as breathtaking as the spectacle was, it was playing out against the backdrop of real-world consequences.
The
authorities were closing in.
After nearly an hour on the wire. Police officers, who'd initially been completely dumbfounded by the situation. Managed to coax Petit down.
Coax him down.
Okay. He was arrested, of course.
Of course.
But even then, his spirit remained unbroken.
I love that when asked for a motive, he simply replied, "If I see 3 oranges, I have to juggle." It perfectly encapsulates his spirit, doesn't it?
It does.
This irrepressible urge to create, to push boundaries, to do the seemingly impossible. Simply because it's there.
It speaks to a mindset we often lose sight of as adults.
Right.
That childlike sense of wonder. That impulse to play and create. To see possibilities where others see only limitations.
So what happened next?
How
did the world react?
Well, as you might imagine, reactions were mixed.
Okay.
Some saw him as a reckless criminal. Endangering himself and others. Others hailed him as a folk hero. A daring artist who gave the city an unforgettable gift.
And of course, this was all happening against a backdrop of immense social and political change.
The
Vietnam War was ending. Watergate had shaken public trust. And here comes Petit. This enigmatic figure who literally walks above it all. And what's fascinating is how he navigated the aftermath of the walk. He was offered lucrative commercial deals. Imagine Petit endorsing products. Starring in movies. But he rejected them all.
He did.
It seems fame and fortune didn't interest him.
No.
He wanted to stay true to his artistic vision.
To
the purity of his craft. It's almost like he saw those offers as a compromise. A betrayal of what that walk represented.
Exactly.
He wasn't in it for the money or the fame.
No.
He was driven by something deeper. That almost spiritual connection to his art. To the pursuit of the impossible on his own terms. And this unwavering commitment to his craft is what makes his story so compelling. He could have easily cashed in on his newfound fame. But he chose to stay true to himself, to his vision. He did.
And while he continued to perform high-wire walks all over the world. Crossing Niagara Falls.
Wow.
A gorge in the Grand Canyon.
Wow.
Even between the towers of the Cathedral of St. John the Divine.
Right here in New York City.
He
never again did so clandestinely.
No.
It's like the Twin Towers walk was a culmination of his rebellious spirit. A statement that needed to be made outside the rules. But from then on, he found a way to push boundaries within the system. It wasn't simply about the spectacle anymore.
No.
It was about refining his art. Exploring new environments. Finding that delicate balance. Between risk and
control.
Between physical mastery and artistic expression.
His walks became like moving sculptures, wouldn't you say?
Moving sculpture, yeah.
Ephemeral works of art.
Ephemeral.
Existing only in that moment, then gone.
Gone.
Leaving behind only the memory and the photographs.
You've hit on a key concept here.
I have.
Ephemeral art.
Ephemeral art.
It's about embracing the fleeting nature of the moment.
Yes.
Creating something beautiful and meaningful. That exists only for a short time. It makes you think about how we value art, doesn't it?
It does.
Is it about permanence, ownership?
Right.
Or is it about the experience?
Yeah.
The emotional impact, the way it changes how we see the world. Even if just for a moment.
And this brings us to a point that's impossible to ignore.
Yeah.
When discussing Petit and the Twin Towers.
The Twin Towers.
The towers, once symbols of human achievement, are gone. Destroyed in a tragedy that shook the world.
Yeah.
It adds another layer of complexity and poignancy to his story. For Petit, it must have been incredibly personal. He literally walked between those buildings.
Yeah.
Experienced them in a way few others ever did.
How did he process that loss?
when asked about the tower's destruction,
yeah,
he said, "For me, both towers were alive."
Both towers were alive.
It's a powerful statement that speaks to the deep connection he felt with those structures.
It's like he lost a part of himself that day.
Yeah.
A part of his own personal history.
A part of his history.
And it's a reminder that even the most monumental structures are ultimately temporary.
It's temporary.
But the memory of Petit's walk, that endures.
It does.
And I think that's part of what makes this story so captivating. It's a story of daring,
artistry,
of pushing boundaries. But it's also a story of loss and remembrance. And it raises some profound questions, doesn't it?
It does.
About our relationship to the built environment, about the power of memory. And about the enduring legacy of human creativity. In the face of tragedy. It does.
And I think that's a perfect segue into the final part of our deep dive.
The final part.
Where we'll explore these themes in more detail.
Yeah.
And consider the lasting impact of Philippe Petit's walk. On our collective imagination.
We've been on quite a journey with Philippe Petit.
We have.
From his rebellious youth to those clandestine climbs and that breathtaking walk between the Twin Towers. But as we've seen, this story is about so much more than just a man on a tightrope.
It really is.
About the power of dreams.
The
allure of the impossible.
Right.
And that tension between human ambition and the limits of the law.
Yeah, and makes you question what's truly possible when we set our minds to something.
Right.
And refuse to take no for an answer.
It's about art challenging norms, wouldn't you say?
I would.
Petit
forced us to look at these massive, imposing structures, these symbols of power and commerce, and see something else entirely. Beauty. Grace. Human potential. He transformed them into something ephemeral. Something poetic. And for that brief moment, he held the city, perhaps even the world, in a state of collective wonder. It makes you realize the power art has to stop us in our tracks. And make us see the world anew.
It's almost like he gave us permission to dream. To imagine doing the impossible ourselves.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason his story continues to resonate.
It does.
Even decades later.
In
a world that often feels defined by limitations. By what we're told we can and cannot do.
Yeah, right.
Petit's story reminds us that those boundaries are sometimes self-imposed.
He didn't ask for permission. He didn't seek approval.
He didn't.
He saw a vision.
And pursued it with relentless passion and dedication.
It's a powerful message.
It is.
Especially for anyone who's ever felt limited by their circumstances.
Yes.
By the rules. By the fear of failure.
Of course, we're not advocating for reckless disregard for the law.
Right.
But there's a lesson here about the importance of pursuing our passions. Our dreams. With the same level of dedication and commitment that Petit brought to his art. Finding that balance between respecting boundaries and daring to push them. And maybe, just maybe, inspiring others along the way.
Because that's the true power of art, isn't it?
It is.
To elevate us, to challenge us, to remind us of what's possible when we dare to dream big. But I keep coming back to the bittersweet element of Petit's story.
Yeah.
The fact that the Twin Towers, those majestic structures that served as his stage, are no longer there.
It's a poignant reminder of the impermanence of everything. Yeah. Even those things that seem so solid. So enduring. And it adds a layer of tragedy to Petit's story. But also, I think, a layer of hope.
I'm curious how so.
Because even though the towers are gone, the memory of Petit's walk remains.
It does.
It's a testament to the power of human ingenuity.
Yeah.
The enduring nature of art to transcend time and circumstance.
Right.
Like those photos and films of him on the wire.
Yeah.
His story will continue to inspire long after we're gone.
It's a beautiful thought.
It is.
That even in the face of loss, something beautiful and inspiring can endure.
Yeah.
And it leads us to our final thought for you, our listener.
Okay.
If you could attempt something seemingly impossible, what would it be? What dream, what ambition have you been holding back on?
What boundary are you ready to push?
Yeah.
What limit are you ready to transcend?
Because, as Philippe Petit showed us,
He did.
sometimes the most incredible journeys begin with this single daring step.
A single daring step.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the life and legacy of Philippe Petit.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you've learned something new.
We do.
Gained a new perspective.
Yes.
And maybe even been inspired to take a leap of your own.
To take a leap.
Until next time, keep exploring.
Keep exploring.
Keep questioning.
Keep questioning.
And keep dreaming big.
Keep dreaming big.